So this is the prep to assemble my 5-inch cake. So I have my 6-inch cake layer, and I've just used my 5-inch cutter to cut off the excess of the cake. Now I'm placing my 5-inch cake on top to see if the thickness is the same for both cakes, and it wasn't. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit of the top of the cake the way I did right before with the strawberry cake. And now I'm just using my long serrated knife to cut away the excess of the cake, using my 5-inch cake right on top as a guide to how much needs to come off so that both cakes are even and ready to be assembled together. So once I finish doing this cutting, I'm gonna wrap the cake back up, leave it in the fridge for about 15 minutes just so it can be nice and firm, so I can handle it after doing all of this work to it. And then I'll assemble it just as I would, or just as I did with the strawberry cake. So here is my raspberry cake, and it's another quick look at putting the final coat of buttercream on the cake. So like before, just making sure that my layer of buttercream that I'm placing on the sides of the cake is even and smooth. But here you can see I have a huge bare space there where you can see the raspberry buttercream crumb crow under there. So I'm just going to go back and patch it up, and then just working my way around the cake with the offset spatula. Once you've gotten all your buttercream on the sides of your cake, you can use a bench scraper to smooth it out. I don't like that method just because I am very heavy-handed and I have a tendency to dig into the sides of the cake and mess up the work that I've already done before. So the offset spatula is my best option. I will include links to bench scrapers just so you can see what they look like. So just again, running the spatula on the outside of the cake, trying to make it nice and smooth and even. And once I've finished with the sides of the cake, I'll move on to the top of the cake. And I'll do exactly the same that I did with the strawberry cake, putting a nice sized dollop on the top of the cake and spreading it out with my offset spatula, trying to make it as even and flat and smooth as possible. And then once I've gotten the top of the cake to a spot that I like, I'll take my offset spatula and just run it right across the upper edge to clean off any excess buttercream on the edge of the cake. And then holding my offset spatula at a 45-degree angle, I'll barely graze the sides of the top of the cake just to remove any of that excess buttercream that's up top there. And once I feel confident that I've done a good enough job of getting the top of the cake to where I want it, I'm going to take a mug of hot water, so just water from my kettle, and I'm going to place my offset spatula in there for about 20 seconds. And once it seems that my offset spatula is good and hot, I'll take it out, I'll dry it with a paper towel, and then I'm just going to run it across the surface of the buttercream, and that's just going to melt the fats in the butter, in the buttercream, and help to really make the surface of the buttercream nice and smooth. I'll do this maybe 2 or 3 times just to make sure that I've gotten the sides of the cake as smooth as I can get them. Then I'll move right on to the top of the cake, doing the same, leaving the spatula in the hot mug, drying it off, and then just running it across the top of the cake, holding it at a 45-degree angle and barely touching the sides to get any excess buttercream off, and then just making sure, holding it flat to the surface, top surface of the cake and smoothing it out. You can see here that I have buttercream peeking through, but that won't be an issue.
So I've set up my piping bag to try something new for myself. So I went to Michael's and I saw these piping bags for the icing duets where you can pipe 2 colors at once. But I read the bag and you need like a special coupler and special tips, and I didn't have that. But I do have a plethora of piping bags, so I've filled 2 smaller, you can't really see it here because the light is really strong, but I filled 2 smaller piping bags with some vanilla buttercream and then some raspberry buttercream. I put a tip in a larger bag, and then I put these 2 bags in the larger piping bag as well. So let me move the cake out of the way. I'm just going to take a paper towel because I think it'll show up best here, and or plastic wrap. I can do plastic wrap. All right. So I'm just going to take some plastic wrap, and I'm going to sort of test out kind of what I envision the decorative swirl to look like, just to see if 1, it'll come out the way I'm anticipating, and 2, just to, you know, start the piping from going. So I'm squeezing the bag and I'm swirling, and again, you can't really see it because the light is really strong today, but it's 2 colors. I kind of like it. I'm using my favorite open star tip, which is tip 826 by Teco. So again, I'm just gonna pipe a few more rosettes just to make sure I got a feel for what I want. Trying them in different sizes, seeing what works best for me. And this is what I do generally when I'm trying a piping technique that I haven't really done before. And although I have done numerous rosettes on cakes, I've not tried this 2 piping bags at once. And I just want to make sure that what I'm envisioning in my mind, I can duplicate. And, you know, if I can't envision in my, if I can't duplicate what I'm envisioning in my mind, then by testing out what I can do, I can figure out what I would like to sort of substitute for what my original plan was. So I'll just pipe a couple of more of these just to make sure I'm getting the result that I want. I've made these over here a little bit wider but more flat, and I've made these 2 over here smaller but higher in height, so taller. And I think I'm gonna try to do a combo of both, so wider in size but also taller in height. I think that's what I'm gonna go with. I know that the surface of this cake is not very large, it's just a 6-inch cake. But yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So because I've mixed 2 buttercreams here, I can't really salvage them, so I'm just gonna tie these up here in the plastic wrap and throw them away. But now I'll bring the cake back and reposition the camera a little bit so you can get a better view, I hope, of what I'm doing. All right, and as always, I start at one side. I'm a little bit inside the border. I'm twirling and up. And then I go to the opposite side, which is here, and I do the same, a little bit inside the edge of the cake, twirl and up. And now it's really up to you how you want to do your final decorations. I'm gonna see if I can get 6 to 8, so anywhere from anything from 6, 7, or 8 rosettes on the top of this cake. I'm gonna shoot for 8. Those are really close together. Not the best decision on my part, but you know, it's just a way of saying, hey, you should have a better plan next time. Or because I've done that, I can just do rosettes all the way around the top of this cake. So that's what I'll do to kind of make look like my error was intentional. And a lot of the time, that's how some of your best decorating will come about. And even here, even though there's like a gap here, I'll just sort of tilt the piping bag and fill in that space. I feel like 90% of the time when I'm decorating a cake, if I'm trying something new, the end result is always a combination of my intention and troubleshooting. So that's it. That's where I'm gonna leave it. I know my rosettes aren't exactly all the same size, but I'm not, again, because this is just sort of playtime for me and I'm trying things out and experimenting. I'm totally fine with that. That's the end result right here. I really like it. And now I don't think I want to use such a large tip for the side of the cake. But again, I'm not sure, so like before, I'm just going to move my cake out of the way and I'm going to sort of experiment with my piping tip to see what results I'll get. And that's about the size of the border that will come out of this tip. I think it's too large for this cake. Alright, so I have my two smaller piping bags. This right here is the raspberry buttercream. And then this is the vanilla buttercream. Here is my larger piping bag. And this is the tip that I'm going to use for the border on the cake. This is an 822 tip from Ateco. Off more of the tip of the bag that I need. So that's where the tip falls in the bag. So I'm just gonna push it back a little with my thumb, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. I pinch it, and then I cut where the depression is. Then I push the tip through the bag. I look around the sides just to make sure all of the tines in the piping bag are outside. Our piping tip, all the tines in the piping tip are outside the bag. They aren't all completely free of the bag, so I'm just gonna take off the tiniest amount of the piping tip or the piping bag at the end. So two really slender cuts. If I had to put a measurement to them, I'd say it's probably like 1/16 or even 1/32 of an inch. So not a lot at all. And then there's my piping tip. It's completely out of the bag. And because I have different amounts of buttercream in my bags, or because my bags are filled with buttercream, it's really hard to line them up to get a uniform cut, but I do the best that I can to line up the tips of the bag. And then I pinch off maybe about 1/4 inch of the bags, and that's where I cut. This tip is a little bit smaller than the one I had before. I have to work a little bit harder at pushing the bags down in there. And then just like before, I'm going to take a paper towel or a piece of plastic wrap or saran wrap, wax paper, parchment paper, whatever floats your boat. Gonna get a good grip on my bags and then just push out my buttercream just to make sure that it's coming out the way that I want it to. Then I'm gonna try the shape that I want or see what works best for me. So I think I'm gonna try this S alternating swirl piping. I think that's what I'm going to try on the cake. So again, I'm pushing that off to the side because I can't salvage that buttercream since they're mixed together. And I'm gonna try to find the least attractive side of my cake. This is what I always do, and it's right back here, I think. No, maybe right here. So it's the side that is the least attractive piping wise. So now I'm just gonna right up the sides of the cake, do my S, and then I'm gonna rotate the piping bag around to do alternating, and that's how I'm gonna finish this cake. It's up to you what kind of pattern you want to do. It also depends on what you feel comfortable doing. I really wanted to try this out. I've been thinking about it a lot. Trying to figure out how to make the cake look fun. I just continue just around the cake, doing it up the sides of the cake just because I don't want to have to worry about cleaning up the cake board afterwards. And then that's it right there, just piped around.
Once I finished decorating the cake with buttercream, I moved on to placing my berries on top of my cake, and these are just raspberries that I've rinsed and dried. I placed my first berry where I wanted the front of my cake to be, and then I flanked that berry with my other berries, trying to space them out equidistant from one another. But you can do whatever you want, whatever design or layout works the best for you or that you want.
So here are all the cakes finished. That's the strawberry. So it's lemon cake, strawberry buttercream, with just the vanilla buttercream on the exterior. Then this is the raspberry cake, lime cake, raspberry buttercream with vanilla buttercream on the outside. Blueberry, lemon cake, blueberry buttercream on the outside. And then blackberry, which is lime cake, blackberry buttercream, and then vanilla buttercream on the outside. I really wanted to see what this would be like, especially because, as I mentioned before, I am lactose intolerant, so eating traditional shortcake doesn't really vibe well for me. So even though, you know, this is not traditional shortcake, this is my version of it. You don't have to do all of these flavor combinations, or you could switch it up. You know, you could do lime cake with strawberry buttercream, or even plain just vanilla cake with buttercream. It's whatever floats your boat. I just really wanted to see what these would taste like all together. So here is the blueberry lemon cake. So it's lemon cake with blueberry buttercream and fresh blueberries in between the layers of the cake. That's what it looks like on the inside of the cake. I think I did a pretty good job of getting the ratio of buttercream to cake that I wanted to achieve. I did star piping detail at the bottom of this cake, similar to what I did for the raspberry cake, except this I believe was a Wilton 18 tip, both on the sides and on top of the cake. So that's the first one. Here is the strawberry cake. So lemon cake with strawberry buttercream, and then this is how the cake slice looks. If I had it to do it again, I might add a little bit more buttercream in between the layers of the cake. But again, I'm quite pleased with how it looks, and with this one, I wanted to try something different for myself instead of just smooth vanilla buttercream, so I tried doing striations in the buttercream and being a little bit more, I don't want to say asymmetrical, but not as balanced with my decorating. So there are 6 strawberries on top of this cake, but I tried to place them in more straight lines corresponding with the striations in the top of the cake, rather than doing equidistance or placing them equal distance apart on the surface of the cake. This is the blackberry cake. I didn't do a really good job of slicing this one. But again, I like the ratio of buttercream to cake in the slice. And this is what it looks like on the inside. And with this one, I used a straight tip. I believe it was the Wilton 8 straight tip. I'll put it for sure in the description below. And that's the same that I did up here on the top. And I just did a squiggly line and then placed the blackberries equidistant apart on the surface of the cake. And this is lime cake with blackberry buttercream and fresh blackberries in between the layers. And this is the final cake sliced. This is the lime cake with raspberry buttercream and fresh raspberry in between the layers. For all of the cakes, I have the fruit flavored buttercream and then fresh berries in between the layers. And this is what the interior of the cake looks like. Full disclosure, I'm the most excited about this one because I am a huge fan of limes and raspberries. But that is it. I really enjoyed doing this project. I tried some recipes that were outside of my comfort zone. They didn't all work out, and when you read the blog, you'll find out why. But I learned that ultimately, as I'm always telling you, you need to go with what works best for you and what you enjoy, and that's what trying these new recipes did for me. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't try new things, but if you're ever in doubt about a recipe or a technique that you've not done before and you want to try it out, maybe do it on a smaller scale instead of being like myself and doing a grander project. But that was it. I learned some things, which is always the goal with these projects, and I had fun.